Hey there, Chuck with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Looking at a deck here that I call Golgari Enchantments. The one thing that I'm looking at building here, and I might do a mini series this week on honing this deck. It is green-white all enchantments deck. So I want to try to focus and try to maybe find some neat combos here with enchantments entering the field through the constellation effect. But we'll see what we can come up with here. And again, we might mix this in with some removal and some other things like that to make it a little bit more competitive. But I want to see what we can get to come up here and see some nifty combos. And one combo that I have already seen here, and I don't know if other people have pointed this out, but the combo between Fate Unraveler and Fate Unraveler says whenever an opponent draws a card, Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. So they're already losing 1 every turn that they have. So they're losing 1 damage. So immediately as soon as you get this guy out, they start dealing damage to them. And the other thing is Master of the Feast. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card. So now they're losing a damage on your turn as well, and you have a 5/5 flyer. So Master of the Feast and Fate Unraveler look pretty good together, which is one definitely a plus here. We have other things here that deal damage to people. At the beginning of Enchanted Creature's controller, that creature deals 2 damage to them, or they lose 2 life off of it. So there's another enchantment that we can use that way that does damage to them automatically. And Brain Maggot, you can reveal cards from their hand and choose to exile that card until Brain Maggot leaves the battlefield. So there's another fun little thing that we can do there. And another fun thing here is we could play these things to draw ourselves some more cards is Eidolon of Blossoms. So whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, draw a card. So we can get ourselves some card advantage here. And Courser of Kruphix, we can hone our deck down a little bit that way. And we also have Boon, which has Flash and Bestow. So we have some different things we can do with green here. Humbler of Mortals is a constellation, and whenever Humbler of Mortals or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, which could be very big as well. But it is a little high costed, so I don't know how that will work out. Leaf Crown Dryad is 2/2 in reach, so that's fun. This is a trampler with Bestow. Oakheart Dryads or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Also nifty with Master of the Feast because we can just add a bunch of +1/+1 counters to him and make him really dangerous. Spire Spine doesn't look like he would be that great because he blocks each turn if able. But it gives him +4/+1, and on Master of the Feast, that makes him a 9/6 right off the bat. So Spire Spine onto him for 5 seems pretty good. Feral Invocation is a flash +2/+2, so that looks pretty good. Forced Adaptation puts a +1/+1 counter every turn, and there's only 1 mana cost. Mana Bloom, we can just keep entering this into the battlefield and just cheap removing to add mana. So it's a mana ramper, and it's going to we can drop it on the field quite a few times to set off our constellation stuff. So that seems pretty good as well. Market Festival, I'm not too big on, but whenever an enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds 2 mana in any combination of colors to his or her mana pool. So that gives us access to multiple colors of land. So it's not really all that great, but you know, it might have a spot. But Raised by Wolves is definitely a decent one that we could do. Strength from the Fallen is a constellation and just enchantment. Whenever Strength from the Fallen or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in our graveyard. So this works really, really well also with Night Howler, as that just makes Night Howler ridiculous. Some other things we've noticed is Nyx Weaver, as we can put the top 2 cards of our library in our graveyard, which works well with Strength for the Fallen, and we can exile Nyx Weaver and return target card from our graveyard to our hand. So this also is pretty nice, and it has reach as well. Pharika herself is indestructible, and as long as our devotion to black and green is less than 7, it isn't a creature, But for 3, we get a exile target creature card from a graveyard. Its owner puts a 1/1 black and green snake enchantment creature with Death Touch onto the battlefield. So we get 1/1s with Death Touch all day long just by exiling creature cards from a graveyard. So this would work really well as well, and is an enchantment. And for a little bit of a white splash, we can, whenever Underworld Coinsmith or another enchantment enters the battlefield, we gain a life. So if we wanted to splash a little bit of white, we could definitely play this Underworld Coinsmith, and we can pay 2 and pay 1 life, and they lose a life. So this has a decent synergy as well. Agent of Erebos says whenever Agent of Erebos or another enchantment enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. So this is a good sideboard card. Aspect of Gorgon says enchanted creature has 1/3 and has Death Touch, so there's another decent one. Cavern Lampad, Intimidate. Dictate of Erebos is new. It has Flash, and whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So that can end up paying off really well as well. Doomwake Giant is just good in and of itself, and whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 till end of turn. So if we played enough enchantments during a turn, we could just wipe out a lot of decks that way in and of itself. Deadbringer Lampad says whenever they enter another enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, target creature gains Intimidate till end of turn, which can lead to a lot of serious damage. And then of course we already mentioned Fate Unraveler. Fawn of Return says sacrifice Fawn of Return, return up to 3 creature cards from our graveyard to our hand. So this is one way that we can get things out of our graveyard and into our hand in order to cast them, and it is an enchantment as well. Works well with Nyx Weaver and Pharika. So that's pretty cool. Gnarled Scarhide is just a 1-drop and a bestow enchantment creature. It can't block, but this is another great card for us. And Grim Guardian here is a 3-drop 1/4, and whenever another enchantment enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So again, we see another combination here with Fate Unraveler and Master of the Feast, as it causes them to lose life without us ever having to deal damage to them. Herald of Torment is just a fantastic card, gives our stuff flying, but we lose a life at the beginning of every turn. But I don't know if it really makes a difference at that point. Master of the Feast we've mentioned. Night Howler is great if we just dump stuff in our graveyard. Nyx Infusion is enchantment. It gets +2/+2 as long as an enchantment, otherwise it gets -2/-2. So this can be removal and it can be a boost for our creature. And sets off any constellation. Nyxborn Eidolon sets off constellation. Sinister Possession, whenever an enchanted creature attacks or blocks, its controller loses 2 life. So we can cast this on their creature, set off our constellation stuff, and hit them for 2 life if they attack or block with it. So that's really good. Spiteful Returned, whenever enchanted creature attacks, defending player loses 2 life. So this is going to be fantastic to put on Master of the Feast. Stab Wound hits them for 2 life every turn if it's on their creature. Thoughtrender Lamia. Whenever Thoughtrender or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent discards a card. So this is going to work really well with them drawing cards every turn off Master of the Feast, as if we play something every turn, they have to discard a card. And Underworld Connection has pay 1 life, draw a card. It is an enchantment, and Weight of the Underworld is an enchantment as well, and can be removable as well as set off our constellation effects. So there we have a lot of different things that we can look at to try to hone down and try to make things that way. And we also have to remember Whip and Bow of Nylea both are enchantment artifacts. So those are both things that we can look at to add to this too. So this is just kind of a beginning of some things that I'm looking at here and some synergies and combos. So if you see anything in there that really flashes at you, I would love to hear about it. But I think I'm going to try a little mini series about building a deck here with what we've got here, just to see how it might pan out or play out. So, and eventually we can play with this as of a couple weeks from now. And there are a lot of really good cards in here, but it's just finding out if there's enough synergies here to really make a combo deck that works off of enchantments with green-black. So yeah, that's what we're going for. So look forward to seeing some more out of this in the future. Again, this is Chuck with RogueDiscover.com, and thanks for watching.